Hey there, this is Greg again. I've got some great little containers that I found at our local recycling store, scrap store, which sells all recycled objects from industry throwaways, stuff that people bring in. I don't know what these containers are. They're metallic, and well, they look actually like little miniature frames, but I know that isn't what they were used for originally. So I'm going to use these for both assemblage and for collage kinds of projects. One of them took out and I spray painted black. I may use it black like this, but I also like covering my boxes, my frames with old newspaper, dictionary pages, or whatever. I use my Yes paste. I let the stuff dry and then I go back and sand it really well. And once you sand it, it kind of primes the surface so that you can go in and use some alcohol ink. I make my own alcohol ink, by the way. You can really save. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I say this on all my videos. You can save yourself a heck of a lot of money mixing your own alcohol dyes with just RIT clothing dye, 99% alcohol. Mix it to the color that you want, and then I like the aging process with these dyes better than I do just using regular paint. It's fast and it's easy and quick and relatively painless to do this. So I'm going to do one up really quick here and then I'm going to let it dry. This one had quite a bit of alcohol in it, so the red dye is fairly light in it. Looks a little bit raw at this point, but once it dries it's going to take on a different kind of a look. I've got another one here that's a little bit darker. So I'm going to use both of these and see what I can do. I also cut my own glass because I want to actually cover these. So I've got some glass here that will fit down on top like this, so I can begin to work on the inside of my container and either do collage work or assemblage work. The container itself, of course, isn't very deep, so I can't really do any big time assemblage in here, but I can certainly do some small interesting kinds of things. So as soon as this stuff dries, I'll go on to the next part of this and show you what some of my plans are. Alright, I kind of hurried this thing along with my heat gun, and it's dry and I can use it at this point. I made myself a little divider, another piece of wood that I just cut and covered with my paper, and I dyed it, and I'm going to actually glue it in this point, I think at the bottom of my box right here. And at the very bottom of this area I'm going to use, I've got some great little glass beads. They're not really beads, I'm not really sure. They're like little glass ball bearings, and I'm going to put those into this section down here at the bottom. They're going to be movable, which I kind of like the whole idea of this. They're going to be movable once I get everything put together. And then in the center part of my box I've got a vintage picture of this guy I'm going to put over on this side. I think I'm going to be doing all this. I'm kind of playing with this as I talk about it. I may change my mind on some of this. I've got an old pair of doll eyes that I took out of a doll that I was using. I'm going to put the doll eyes over his eyes. And let me see, how do I show you this? I'm going to put my glass down on top. I've got this neat little advertisement for a cure for rheumatism, neurologica, sciatica, and all kinds of pains. I'm going to put this, it's got a little hole in it also that I ended up cutting out. I'm going to put this on the side over here, and underneath this whole area I've got a little tiny framed picture, a little picture that comes from an old 1940s yearbook of one of the graduating students. So this piece is going to go under here, and it's going to show through, oh man, let me see if I can get this all situated. It's going to show through the little hole at this point right here. So basically this is what's going to happen. Got to get the doll eyes back in place. So I got this guy on this side, my little advertisement the yearbook photo here, and I've got some little movable glass bearings down here at the bottom. And I'll get this glued together, and this is my completed piece at this point. It should be my completed piece at this point. Alright, this box is done. Everything is glued together. I've got a little movement down here at the bottom. I really like these glass beads that roll back and forth. I got the doll's eyes on this guy's head, and I've got my little, what is this, a little label and the little photo inside. I don't know if you can see all that, but it's a very compact box. Anyway, as you can see, but I do have another one here that I showed you a little bit earlier that's already been dyed, and I think what I'm going to do with this one, I've got some kind of a metal wire mesh thing that I'm going to put down inside the box. In this fashion, I've got another old vintage photo that I'm going to use, and on top of this vintage photo I'm going to use a transparency. These transparencies, in fact I've got a few of them here, these transparencies have come, I got them at my scrap store, at this recycling store that we have in the Portland area, and these transparencies were 10 cents a piece, and they've come from some kind of a teacher's science book of some kind. They're colored, and yeah, I've got quite a few of them. I've got a mess of them here. There's just all different kinds of interesting things on these transparencies that can be cut apart. So that's what I've been doing. I've been cutting my transparencies apart, and I'm going to use a little section like this on top of this guy's face or head. And another section of the transparency looks like this, which I've already cut and is going to be glued onto the edges of this box. I'm going to put my glass on top of all of this. If you can still see the guy inside or not, there's a lot of glare here. And then on top of all of this, I'm going to put this little thing. Let me see what happens here. Yeah, I guess you can kind of see what's going on here. Yeah, kind of like that. So I've got quite a few layers of stuff that's happening. Bring it up a little bit closer to you without getting the glare of my camera in here. Okay, that's pretty much it. I have started on my third box. Not a whole lot of depth in these things, but that's kind of what I'm enjoying with these particular assemblages. Got some dowels over here on the side. These are just regular plain old little wooden dowels that I've covered with my color dictionary pages. You know, I just kind of glue the paper, wrap the paper around the dowel, and make sure everything is kind of cut to size here. So I put some dowels down. Underneath here I've got an old vintage photo, an old vintage face with a transparency over the top of this particular face that I kind of like. And I think how I'm going to finish this off, I've got, if I can pick it up here, I've got an old vintage X-Lax label and a little piece of cardboard that I'm going to use as a floater, and I'm going to set the X-Lax label inside the box in this fashion. And then I'm going to just put my glass. I've already cut glass. This glass is kind of dirty already. I'm going to have to wash it up a little bit. Put the glass on top like this. And then I think to finish this off, I've got some vintage anatomy pictures that I'm going to use, and I've got some vintage anatomy hands, and I think I'm going to put a hand. This is going to be very symmetrical by the time I get done, but I'm going to put a hand on top of the glass on each side here. When I'm gluing any kind of paper on top of glass, I've said this before, but I always glue it down with silicone, 100% clear silicone. And I put the silicone very carefully, a very, very thin layer on the back of my paper cutouts, and then lay them very carefully down on top of the glass, and they stay forever. So anyway, this will be my third box, and I'll get it done, everything glued into place. Another box that I have going today is same kind of a box. I'm going to use a map cutout that I'm going to glue down inside my metal box. I have an anatomy cutout that I think is going to go right in the center like that. I have some more of my little poles, little pieces of wood that are covered with my dyed paper, and I think they're going to go on each side of my anatomy cutout in this manner. And I'll be a little more exact with this when I actually get it glued down. And then, since I've got some side alleys over here, I think I'm going to fill up these side alleys, or at least I'm going to, maybe not fill them up, but I've got these little bearings, these little BBs that I'm going to put on to the side like this. Let me see. I don't know if I can do this without actually gluing it all down. Anyway, you get the idea. And I will put a piece of glass over the top in this manner. And I think I'm going to do one more cutout. I've got a rib cage cutout that I'm going to put on top of this guy in this manner. So you can kind of see what's going on here. At least I think this is what I'm going to do. I do change my mind, but at least for now, this is what will happen.